Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Know to Grow, a light to heavy duty podcast. I'm your host, Chandler Kohn with Focus Investment Banking. Today, I have on Jim Bartlebaugh with JB Trailer. Welcome, Jim. Thank you for joining us. Tell us a little bit about your business and yourself.
Yeah, hi Chandler. Thanks for having me on today. So, little history of JB Trailer. We've been around for a bit. This was started with my father and I back in 1993. I guess I'm kind of listed as second generation owner of the company, but I've been here since day one. My father initially started this company. He was, very much, spent much of his career in the heavy duty industry. He did everything from working on an assembly line at Fruhoff Trailers, building trailers, to director of maintenance of a big leasing company, to working for a trailer manufacturer, selling and leasing trailers, and then coming up with the idea of opening JB Trailer. My background is I started in this industry fresh out of high school. I was working for another shop. I did everything from at the ground floor. I was a grunt. Whatever was needed, I did it. I got to come in the process where they were opening up a second location, and I was, a bit instrumental in helping launch that second location. And I ended up working in their parts department. They opened up, along with opening up their second location, they opened up a retail parts shop or parts department, and I worked in that for a bit. And then that's when my dad came up with the idea of opening JB Trailer, and he approached me with it and said, "Here's my idea, and here's where I want to go and what I want to do, and are you in?" And of course, let's go. So we started that, and it officially, that happened probably about summer of '92 is when he came up with the idea, and then we slowly opened it up we were opened up by like late fall of '92 is when we first really got kicked off. But we always say '93 is when we were officially like up and running and going.
Mm-hmm. Great. And where are you? Where are you located?
So we're in Southern California. We're in Fontana, California, which everybody that's in the heavy duty space knows. Fontana, California is, this area out here is it's the biggest area as far as trucking goes, and heavy duty is, just the amount of trucking here, the distribution centers here. Of course, you got the ports of Long Beach and LA here. And so there's just a tremendous amount of truck traffic, within, Fontana is about 50 miles east of Los Angeles.
Yeah, great. That's helpful to explain for East Coast folks like myself. Tell the listeners a little bit about the number of employees you have and the services you offer.
Okay, so we're running 20 right now. We're at 20 employees. We have two parts to our shop. We have the shop that does all types of any and all types of heavy duty work on trailers and some truck work, a lot of lift gate work. And then the other side of our business is our mobile fleet service business, where we just send techs out in the field and do fleet service, roadside repairs, and and all that. It's about as far as the numbers wise, it's about a 50-50 split. We're right now we're at eight mobile techs and 8 shop techs, so it's a pretty even split right now.
Okay, and how many trucks is that? Is that 8?
We have 8 trucks. The mobile techs, that's all they do, is they're just out in the field all day running service calls.
Yeah, and what trucks are you running from a mobile standpoint?
I'm sorry, what
truck? Or what vehicles, or what capabilities do kind of?
So we realistically, we're capable of doing whatever the customer wants us to do on site. Now, it's doesn't always make sense to do everything on site. No, but we're capable of doing just about any types of heavy duty repairs on site. But most of it just comes down to just fleet maintenance. Going out and doing your DOT inspections. And of course, people that aren't familiar with California and their laws, because they have lots of them. One of them is they have they require a 90-day safety inspection on all domicile equipment. So that's a big part of our business, is just helping keep fleets compliant with their inspection. So a lot of it, of course, with every inspection, there's always repairs that are found and taken care of. So.
And what's your viewpoint on the industry right now in terms of mobile? Obviously it seems like, at least from from an investment standpoint, kind of where I stand, that's kind of the sexy space right now. But want to understand that a little bit from your opinion.
We've been doing mobile for like probably about the first 4 years we were open. We didn't have mobile trucks, and then the demand started coming, so we slowly added mobile trucks to it. The demand's always been there. It's a little bit more. I think just because the industry has grown so much on just of how much there is out there, and let's face it, they don't want to. You don't want to drag a trailer into a shop just to get a DOT inspection on. That's a waste of time for the customer, and it's really just clogs up my yard with more equipment. It's far more efficient to send a truck out on site to handle it. What we discovered is the demand is as it continues to grow. I mean, we're going to grow with it, and I know there's some companies out there that are just building their company around nothing but mobile. I don't know if that's the right direction to go because not everything. Yes, I say everything can be done on mobile, but does the customer want you doing it on site? Yeah. And the other thing you run into is just there's rules and regulations. There's certain sites we go into I can't light up a cutting torch on site because they don't have a permit for us to do that in their yard. So there's just certain things that can't be done on site. I know there is a lot of companies out there thinking that everything can be done on site, but there's just sometimes there's things there's roadblocks that get put in the way of us being able to do it on site. So therefore, it's good to have a shop to where because if I can't do it on site and I don't have a shop to do it, guess what? They're going to send it to a competitor, and that has a shop, and they're going to do it.
Yeah. From an insurance standpoint, this is off the cuff question, but does it vary to insure your employees, whether the business is predominantly mobile or predominantly in shop?
Yeah, I mean the insurance companies, they do what they really worry about on the mobile side of it is what gives them the most fear and where they pause whenever we're shopping insurance is they'll question us on the mobile side, and they always think because everyone calls mobile side, they'll call it road service. Well, I mean, road service does happen on occasionally, but I mean, I would say at least probably 98% of the service calls we do are just to some yard. It's at a distribution center or a customer's location, and we're just doing the repair on site. So what the insurance companies are really fearful of is the road service type stuff because it's dangerous. You're out on the side of a highway. We all know how bad drivers are, and it is dangerous. So, but it's our road calls on the side of a highway are few and far between.
Yeah, that makes sense. Going back to 93, when you started the business, let's look at the industry from kind of a California perspective. How has it changed over the past 30 years or so? Kind of broadly speaking, being in California.
Oh, I mean, just being in California, I mean, it's just every year there's a new rule or regulation or that's probably the biggest thing has changed on it. And then and the other thing has changed is just I fight the same battle that every other shop and fleet service company does, and that's finding employees. It's just gotten increasingly harder every year. We keep hoping we're going to turn the corner and we're going to be able to find more people that want to come into this space. But I face the same problem that all the other shops do. I haven't my employees are getting older. And it's hard to, I'm not saying I don't have some younger guys that work here, but those guys they're few and far between to get the young people that want to come in here and do this business. And and as an industry as a whole, we have to fix that problem. It's up to us to fix it.
I'm not sure you can. A lot of this seems to be systemic throughout the U.S. economy. So knock on wood, but I don't think things are changing anytime soon. This is a second generation business. A lot of businesses don't always make it to a second generation. Let's talk about what your father got right that you kept, and then maybe what you as a second generation came in and fixed or adjusted.
Yeah, so yeah, this place was my dad's vision. He was the one that, he dreamt up the idea, and it was his, vision. And he ran with it.
Yeah.
Things he got right. I mean, my dad was a hard worker, and I say that in past tense because my dad. We lost my dad back in 2022, and so yeah, he's not with us anymore. And he got a lot of things right. He instilled in me with work ethic, grit, determination, and that's how we've survived for this
Mhm.
many years. Is just a lot of grit and determination. My dad was his background was in sales, so he was a pretty good salesperson. He taught me a lot on the sales side of it, because as a small company, you got to wear multiple hats, and
Of course.
occasionally I do have to put on my sales hat, and I got to go out and make some sales calls. And and but with all those contacts he made, we were able to grow as fast as we did in the beginning just because he just had so many contacts. He worked in
Mhm.
the industry. He had spent, prior to him opening up the shop, he had spent probably close to 20 years in this industry. So he had just built up a tremendous amount of contacts. So it was, a lot of people trusted in him. So it was easy. The business was pretty easy to come by in the beginning because of people trusted him, and in his dealings with on the sales side of what he was doing before. They said, yeah, we're ready to come on board. And so it was easy. So customers were easy to bring in. My dad was even though he was kind of he worked in a white collar job, but he was very much blue collar. My dad was he was a gearhead. He was into working on cars and boats and anything that had an engine in it. He was working on it, and it taught me a lot because I grew up around that.
Yep. Awesome. Well, let's talk about a little bit about the business itself on a weekly basis. What kind of comes in the door through the bays on average?
Yeah, so on a weekly basis, I mean, we have it, in the shop is mostly heavy repairs, a lot of collision repairs on trailers, a lot of lift gate work. We do everything on lift gates. We do we sell them, we install them, we repair them. So we stay pretty busy on the heavy work, but then we also, one thing we do different than a lot of other shops is we welcome in the owner operators. There's a lot of the big shops around here that don't have time to deal with the owner operators, and any shop that knows this, that sometimes they're not always the easiest customers to deal with.
Yeah.
And but they come in, and we found a little bit of a niche in that, and welcoming them in, and them in here, because last thing a guy does when he's out on the road somewhere and he just needs to come in here, he's got a blown brake can.
Mhm.
That guy can't afford to wait. He's got a load waiting, and we get calls all the time that just, hey, I'm 30 minutes out. I got a brake can leaking on my trailer. Do you guys have time?
Yeah.
Um, Oftentimes we don't because we're busy, but maybe it's a flaw to our part, is we have a hard time saying no. We just say, yeah, bring it in. We'll
Yeah.
figure it out, and we just get them in and out. So yeah, so we have a lot of owner operators, a lot of small trucking companies come here. And of course we do it, and then we deal with all the big fleets too. That's where a lot of our big heavy collision work and stuff we do comes from the big fleets.
And yeah, the heavy duty collision space is an interesting one. What portion of your revenue is from body repair?
Oh, I'd be lying if I knew that exact number, but it's you know, roughly on the shop side of it, what comes in the shop, it's probably about 50% of what we
Oh,
do.
okay. And do you have a paint booth in there?
No, I don't do any paint work. I mean, a little minor
You
touch up
outsource?
work, but when I say collision work, I'm talking about on trailers. We're changing bottom rails, top rails, side skins,
Yeah.
and then we do a lot of heavy structural repairs. You know, uh, welding, fabricating. We do some specialty type stuff. We do you know, uh, some modifications on trailers. We deal with a lot of trailer dealers, and trailer dealers, come in and say, "Hey, I need a side door installed on a trailer here. Can you do it?" Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
We'll put a side door in.
Makes sense. Let's talk a little bit about what separates a shop that fleets trust from one they tolerate. I would think a lot of that comes down to your techs, but you've had I would imagine there's some turnover with tech. So tell me a little bit about what you've done over the past, 15, 20, 30 years to build that trust with your clientele.
Yeah, so turnover wise, we have a very low turnover rate. I
Good.
we try to create an environment here where we do, we bring techs in and we
Keep them,
tend to
right?
keep them for a long time. Yeah, I mean, I have more than one tech here that's been here 20 plus years, and I think with that, with because there's amongst multiple industries that they seem to have accepted that turnover is just part of doing business, and I say absolutely not. Turnover is expensive.
Hmm.
So when I bring a tech in, my goal is to keep them. Now that I don't expect anybody to stay forever. They're welcome to if they're as long as we like them and they like us.
Yeah.
But yeah, turnover is bad. It's bad for businesses. It's expensive. Anytime you bring in a new tech, it costs you it costs you money because you got to train them to do things your way. So I think with doing that, we create consistency in what we do. They learn the way how we operate. They learn the way how we want repairs done. And of course that goes, that bleeds over to the customer. They see that consistency. Customers like consistency. They like when they get a trailer repaired here, they don't have to, inspect it with the magnifying glass after the repair's done because they know it was brought here and it was done right.
Yeah, that's helpful. Trailer repair. What is kind of misunderstood? It looks pretty straightforward from the outside. What's misunderstood about trailer repair?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I get that question a lot to people that don't understand the trailer repair when I tell them, oh, what do you do? What do you do for a living? Oh, I work on semi truck trailers. Oh, really? What's there to do on those? I mean, and there's a lot. I mean, they're obviously not anywhere near as advanced as a semi truck, or on the heavy duty truck side. But there's been some technological advancements on them. I mean, of course, ABS has been around for multiple, over a couple decades now. It's been around, but it's I kind of look at it on the collision side of it. Not everybody's cut out to do collision. There's a bit of an art to being a good body repair guy on a trailer.
Yeah.
And what I found out over years, there's just certain guys that just aren't good at it. And when I find a good body man, I hang on to him because, like I said, there's an art to it. There's an art to hanging a side panel. There's an art to changing out a bottom rail. And, because when we do repairs, do body collision work on trailers, we try to put it back to exactly how it was and how the factory built it. And there's a bit of an art to that.
Yeah, that's really neat. Appreciate, I don't think I've had anybody on here that really specializes in trailer repair. So I like what you're doing. Let's talk about the philosophy, a little bit of the business, kind of, I guess, the art side of the business, if you will. You mentioned that your faith in a higher power helps shape how you run the business. Help the listeners understand that, because I know you're certainly not the only heavy duty owner that tends to operate that way.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, my life is grounded in my faith. I'm a Christian, and it just keeps me from driving myself off in a ditch and making poor decisions. Not saying I get it right all the time. I still occasionally make a bad decision or screw up, and but what it's really taught me is just honesty, being and being caring to my not just to my customers, but to my employees.
Yeah.
It's it's also in my faith and my beliefs, I don't believe my faith. I don't believe I own this company. I believe God owns this company, and He's given it to me to steward. And I take that on that's a great responsibility of me, as He expects me to steward this company well, treat people well, and that includes my employees and customers. And I try to run this company by my faith every day. And like I said, I don't get it right every day. I screw up. I make mistakes. I'm still human. I still make plenty of mistakes and don't get it right every day.
Have you ever, maybe you have an example to share where you've ever run into an issue where kind of your faith or maybe, if you will, the morality of a potential decision conflicts with the numbers or what you think on paper is a better business decision. So do you have an example of when you kind of went with your faith or leaned on that side of decision making versus kind of just strictly looking at the numbers?
Yeah, I mean, when it comes down to, as when you own a business, I mean, there's always things you can cut corners on. And when I
Yeah.
mean cutting corners, I don't mean just cutting corners on a job, but it could mean cutting corners on laws, rules, regulations. And, and this was instilled into me, years ago with my father. My father always believed in doing things the right way. And he always would tell me, he said, look, I like being able to sleep well at night. And if I don't do things right and we're cutting corners, we're not obeying, laws and regulations. He says, I don't want to lose sleep over, those type of things. And my dad was a Christian and very much grounded in his faith too. And I believe it, I don't know if we ever got any of those deep discussions, if that's where it all came from, but that's just what he taught me is to do the right thing. And there's a lot of things as a business owner, there's lots of things you can do that kind of are in the gray area of, hey, that'll save me $1 here and there, but we're kind of riding in some gray area right now that could be a borderline illegal to do something like that, and we don't run that way.
Yeah. And I see it all the time, especially on the financials and embedding things in certain line items and driving down, kind of that net income. And, it's just it's an interesting position to be in as a business owner when it comes to things like that, for sure.
Yeah.
People that your techs that show up every day, you obviously depend on them like every other heavy duty shop owner. What do you think you owe the people that show up every day? And then in return, what do they owe you?
I mean, my techs that show up every day, I mean, I think really the only thing they, owe me is just an honest day's work. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's really all I expect out of them. And like I said, we don't, I don't always get that. I don't always get that right with my techs. I mean, these are, I take every day is a learning process. And when you're dealing with people, it's turns out all of us, we're all pretty difficult. We're sometimes difficult to get along with. We don't know what someone's got going on in their, behind the scenes in their personal life, what they're dealing with at home, and when I've, the fact that we've had, some people here for 20 plus years that, I've gotten to know these guys, pretty well. And, yeah, I don't know where I was going with that, but, but it,
I get it. Question, you're talking about, I know the size of your company. I'm not going to divulge that to the audience, but I think that you mentioned that you have about 20 employees. Maybe it seems slightly high for kind of your business. And I guess maybe if you break it down on bay count, it seems a little high. Help me understand that a little bit. Is trailer work more demanding than truck work? I mean, I just need to understand the employee count a little bit more.
Well, I mean, there's a lot, there's a lot of trailers out there. You figure for most trucking companies, for every truck they have, I don't know the exact number on it, but I would say it's a good, on average, they have 2 trailers for every truck. That's what a lot of companies operate at, and so there's a lot of trailers out on the road. So it's, I don't have any problem keeping as many techs I have, busy. And like I said, with California and the extra inspections that we have to do on trailers versus wherever else. Not to say that other companies out there, they do adopt the 90-day inspection process, but California, you don't have any choice. Every fleet that's domiciled here has to abide by it. So that creates a tremendous amount of extra work for us, on the mobile side, of just, our mobile techs going out and keeping, fleets on the road with it, keeping them, up to date on their 90-day inspections. And as far as keeping the shops, busy, I mean, there's no shortage of work out here. And I think, anybody that's been to Fontana would, to this area, they call this area the Inland Empire, which, Fontana, you got Fontana, San Bernardino, Riverside, and then you got, cities in LA and Orange County and stuff. If you've never been out here, when people come out here for the first time that are in this industry and they've never seen it, they're blown away about how much is out here. And I've, since I've been here my whole life, I'm a native Southern Californian. I've seen it grow. And I've been here in Fontana for, since 1989. Mm-hmm. So I've watched how much it has grown out here. I mean, it is unreal how many distribution centers there's very little vacant land left out here. It's, if there is a vacant piece of land, it's getting gobbled up, and whatever's on it's mowed down, and another, million square foot distribution center is getting built on it. And with every distribution center is a truck and a trailer that gets multiple that get put into them.
Yeah, that's helpful. So the next question is, I'm going to ask you, it's in a roundabout way, where you want to be in 10 years for JB Trailer to be successful, but kind of taking a step back on this question. I think last week I had 3 or 4 potential new private equity firms come to me. They've seen the podcast, some of what I've written in some of the magazines and all that. And, trying to develop a thesis in the heavy duty space. They want to learn more, have a conversation tomorrow with somebody about it. And sometimes I get a question of, well, how are electric trucks going to impact the industry? And obviously you're a great person to ask because you're in California, and California is very forward thinking. How are electric trucks going to impact the industry, if at all?
Well, I mean, they're going to impact the industry. It's just, I think it was, I think California was a little premature on how fast they thought they could ramp up the electric truck industry. There is fleets out here that have adopted them, but not a lot. I mean, it's you don't see as many on the road as the way they put it. Like they had these huge plans of just electrifying the entire industry within a short amount of time. And the problem is the infrastructure isn't there. We can have electric trucks, but if we don't have the infrastructure to charge them, fleets don't want to adopt them. So it's it's here. Is it gonna be here and expand as fast as what they thought it would? I don't think so. I think there's already some fleets that are already taking a step back and having second thoughts on it. Of course, a lot of it has to do with with the new administration is they're not quite as big on of forcing this down the throats of fleets. And I've got nothing against electric trucks. I just think I think there's probably a better way we could do it and bring it into the industry slowly and make sure we, for one, we got to have the infrastructure to do it, and we have to have techs that know how to work on them. We're already struggling in the industry to find techs. Well, now we're bringing a whole new, different type of technology that none of them know how to work on.
So that's my second question. Obviously, the internal combustion engine goes away, but if you break it down into electronics and diagnostics, maybe suspension, steering, alignments, if you break it down into kind of, these subcategories of service, where do you think the complexity comes in with electric trucks? And then second question is, what won't change with electric trucks?
I mean, I'm not, I'm no expert on electric trucks. I think there's going to be a massive learning curve to finding the techs that want to work on it. And just the chatter you hear amongst the old timers that work on these trucks, a lot of them don't even want anything to do with them. They're like, oh, heck no, I don't want to work on those things. Mm-hmm. I think it could do well for the younger generation as we bring them in. Young people are far more technologically advanced than old guys like me. And, I think as we bring young people into it, I think, they would be the ideal people to train on how to work on these. I'm just not an authority on that, since I'm not big into on the truck side. I realize I'm going to have, as we grow the company, I'm going to get more into the truck side. So it's going to be something I'm going to have to learn for sure.
That's helpful. And then, going back to the original question, how is JB going to be successful in 10 years? Where does the company need to be to continue to grow over the next 10 years?
Well, I mean, I set a massive goal for myself. Some people would say it's not even is it even attainable? But I set a goal of I can't believe big goals are set unless you have a really big goal set. And my goal is to 10x the company in 3 years. That's a massive undertaking. It's going to take a lot of work. It's going to take a lot of capital to do it. But that's my plan. And that's what I'm going to do. So you say, where am I at in 10 years? Not just in Fontana. In 10 years, I plan to be all over the Western states. That's my plan. Is to have multiple locations. Our expansion plan is to go into the truck side of the business, and and also to go into, as we expand into other locales, we're going to do it in the way of launching mobile trucks, and as where the demand is. A lot of my customers now are fleets that are based all over the country. So so that the easiest way to launch a new location is to hit those customers up that you're already servicing out here. Hey, do you have a location here in, let's say, Phoenix? Oh yeah, we got lots of equipment in there. That's my goal, is to launch in multiple locations. So you say 10 years from now, 10 years from now, I'm going to be close, I guess, we call it retirement time. I don't know if I'll ever retire. I guess I will at some point, but, 10 years from now, I mean, truth be told, I'll be 65 years old. But I don't have any plans of hanging it up and quitting. I've set a massive goal, and it has nothing to do with money, but it has to do with, building a company to where I feel like the country is in no short supply of we need good business owners. We need ethical business owners, and we need, not everybody wants to work for big corporate America. There is still a lot of people that like working for an independently owned company.
Love it. And then, let's kind of cover this last section, private equity. I know you're getting unsolicited calls all the time. Everybody is.
Weekly.
Yeah. Yeah. What does this mean for, by the way, I know most of them that are making those phone calls pretty well. What does it mean for you? What does it mean for us, kind of a smaller independent shop like you, the consolidation in private equity?
Yeah, I mean, I've given it a lot of thought on the private equity side. Honestly, up until a couple of years or so ago, I didn't give it a whole lot of thought. But the phone started ringing about 4 or 5 years ago, where I say the phone, it was more however reach out, email, letter, whatever. And it didn't really, at first you're kind of flattered that someone's reaching out to you, like, oh wow, you have an interest in buying our company. But then it's not having an understanding of private equity. I figured the only way to have an understanding was to start engaging in conversations with them. And I have engaged in conversations with a lot of them. I've never gotten into serious in depth. I signed one NDA with one company, and then I changed. Yeah, I said, it's not for me, and I backed out, but I still have regular conversations with them just to help me understand what they're trying to build. And they've come into this space, big. They're here. And I mean, of course, we know, like, probably one of the biggest ones out there, Merit Fleet Services. They're private equity owned. They're here. They're in my backyard. I compete with them. I know with my huge plans that I have to expand this company. I don't have the capital to bootstrap that into 10x this company. So I'm going to have to make some decisions on where do I want to go. Do I want to bring in private equity? My thoughts are right now is no. I don't have an interest in exiting this company. I have a legacy I want to carry on, that I want to keep this going. Now, does it mean do I not bring in an investor in here at some point and and entertain that idea? Possibly. I might have to. I don't know. Like I said, I can't bootstrap this, and I don't know if I could borrow that much money to 10x this company. So I might be faced with that I might have to consider that.
Yeah. And in the capital to grow is a chicken or egg scenario. It's always been that way, right? Nobody's going to hand you $15 million to go and theoretically build, you know, two, three, four, five shops, right? The risk is
Right.
the risk is just is too high. And for owners like majority recapitalization makes a lot of sense where you're not looking to retire right now. You want to roll some equity into the new co, but use somebody else's capital to kind of help fund and grow that business. Your options really are close to unlimited. There's a lot of folks that are looking to get in the space, and it's not just the PE backed Barrett's and Trueworths and all that. There's a lot of small quality investors that have a lot of money, a lot of capital behind them as well, that can support expansion. You're the operator, they're the capital provider. So majority recap is certainly always something to consider. Usually I end the podcast on kind of a word of wisdom, but with Diesel Connect coming up next week in Phoenix, Arizona, I know you and your wife are going to be there. Tell me what you're most excited about this year.
Yeah, I mean, probably what I enjoy the most is just connecting with other shop owners, and just hearing, pain points and successes and when you're an owner of a business, I mean, as you know, there's oftentimes, as you hear, it could get very lonely, because you don't have, a lot of people, if they don't own a business, it's hard for people to relate to you, what you're dealing with. And it's nice to be able to connect with other shop owners and just, and just have a place to, have a conversation with each other and just say, hey, here's what my struggle is. What are you dealing with? And you get some good advice like, oh, here's how I dealt with that. I've dealt with that before. And, and I enjoy the speakers. There's Diesel Connects, has some good speakers, good, that's kind of where I've got that's kind of where it kicked off this idea of growing this company. I mean, we've been kind of stagnant for several years. And my first time attending Diesel Connect, it kind of got my wheels turning to talking to other shop owners and seeing where they're at and seeing the opportunity that's out there. That really got my wheels turning of, hey, where can I, I want a piece of this. I'm not satisfied with where we're at. I want to grow this company. And then, this will be my third time, attending it. And, so it's last year really got my wheels turning of just where I want to go, what I want to do with the company. And, so I'm looking forward to it. And it's always nice to get away. We plan a little extra couple days here and there just to, to get there a little early and, treat it as kind of, my wife works with me full time in this business. And, as being a small shop, you don't get a lot of time to get away. So it's nice to get away for a few days.
Well, fantastic. I'm looking forward to it as well and look forward to seeing you there. Jim, I appreciate you joining the show to discuss heavy duty trailer repair. This was very insightful, and we'll connect over email about some times to meet next week. So thank you so much for joining.